I just wanted to drink your blood, but you want me dead. The vampire who fainted fell into a tree. He stood in a pitch black forest. A familiar man's voice suddenly called out. He rushed toward the sound. He saw the man's face. He asked with concern, "What's wrong?" He looked terrible. But just as he finished speaking, the man instantly turned into a skeleton. The vampire froze in. His mind went blank. Suddenly he got slapped across the face. He woke up with a stun. The gang boss sighed beside him. "You're finally awake. First time I've seen someone pass out mid-fight." The vampire explained apologetically. "I think I had a dream just now. Maybe I didn't drink enough blood earlier." He leaned in again. Hours later, the gang boss got up cursing. He limped toward the door. "If the poison doesn't kill this kid, I'll do it myself." The vampire still sat there, savoring the taste with satisfaction. The vampire stayed at the gang boss's place for 2 weeks. The search for the fake wine was going smoothly. After that fight, the tears sparred often. Especially after the vampire drank blood. Sometimes they'd fight anywhere, anytime. But that man in the dream whose face he couldn't see kept appearing. The vampire was certain that person was important to him, but he couldn't remember who it was. Days ago, the gang boss had the butler teach him how to use his phone. He'd also come check on him often. The vampire thought to himself, he really is a kind and caring person. But the gang boss was always busy. That day, even though it was late, he still had to go out for work. The vampire didn't want to leave and chase after him. They clung to each other for a while before finally parting. The vampire was immersed in blissful satisfaction. He decided to make a midnight snack for the gang boss. Meanwhile, the gang boss was interrogating a traitor from his gang. But after all that effort, he got nothing useful. He just ended up covered in filth. Late at night, the vampire heard sounds at the door. He rushed over, but he instantly smelled the heavy scent of blood on the gang boss, and the clothes he wore weren't what he left in. But the vampire didn't ask. The gang boss saw the food on the table. He was clearly seeing. Then warmth flooded through him. He smiled and said, "Next time we'll go out to eat." But just then, blood suddenly dripped from the vampire's nose. Was the gang boss regretting this? When he learned that the pretty boy had been getting nosebleeds frequently, the gang boss guiltily glanced at the leftover wine on the table. In the original plan, after it was done, the pretty boy was supposed to die from slow poisoning. But now that scheme was mixed with regret. What was worse? People from the 5th district knew he was living with the pretty boy. They used it to threaten him. He wasn't afraid of them. But now he was worried the pretty boy would be in danger. On the way back, the driver asked if he had any suspects. The gang boss said grimly, "There are 2 right now. Both were staring at the back of his head earlier. Just not sure yet." Then his man reported the middleman had been caught. The gang boss was quite pleased. He told him to keep watching districts 3 and 6. But when the driver asked what to do with the pretty boy after it was done, the gang boss suddenly got angry. He warned his men not to meddle. That night the vampire was woken by sounds. He found the gang boss unusually different tonight. Not only clingy, but very forward. His lips even got hurt. The vampire was surprised and delighted. Taking advantage of the mood, he softly confessed, "At first I thought I was just drawn to your blood. But the more time we spent together, the more I wanted to know my past. I just know I've been alone. When the contract ends, can you let me stay by your side?" But the gang boss's smile froze instantly. After a long silence, "Give me some time to think." Then he turned and left. From that day on, the gang boss started avoiding him. He used to come home no matter how busy. Now he just stayed out all night. Their conversations dwindled. Their relationship grew distant. Even the sparring after drinking blood stopped. The vampire was full of rage. He wished he'd never confessed. He thought he was special to the gang boss. Turns out it was just wished. The messages he sent went unanswered. Did they not go through? Or did the gang boss just not bother to look? He lost in thought. Blood suddenly gushed from his nose. The vampire hurriedly covered his nose. Lately he'd been getting nosebleeds every day. But when did it start? A terrifying thought crept into his mind. His hands began to twirl ably. Well, now the gang boss didn't have to avoid going home anymore. Because the vampire was dying. Continuing on before. The gang boss closed the net according to plan. But an uneasy feeling stirred inside him. He finally called the pretty boy. But all he heard was a message saying the call couldn't connect. He immediately had the butler go back and check. But the butler hesitated. He stammered, "Hours ago. The maid contacted me. She said air collapsed covered in blood." The gang boss exploded in. "Why didn't you tell me right away?" The butler quickly explained. He said he figured telling him before the big issue was settled would just distract him. Before he finished, the gang boss's fist hit the butler's face. "I warned you last time not to overstep." Meanwhile, the unconscious vampire fell into a nightmare. The dream showed that familiar forest again. But this time the man he'd been longing for had wounds all over his face. The vampire rushed. He asked, trembling, "Who hurt you like this?" But the man pushed his hand away. He said coldly, "Don't come here anymore. I'm marrying the count's daughter." The vampire didn't believe it. He thought the man was joking. He grabbed his hand and promised, "I'll be good to you from now on. I can give you anything you want." But the man stayed firm. He looked into the vampire's eyes and said word by word, "I don't believe in 20 years, our feelings will be the same as now. So I can't keep the promise we made." At that moment, the vampire finally recognized him. The man who kept appearing in his dreams was the gang boss. He completely broke down. Tears streamed down his face. He screamed in despair, "Why is it you again? You already abandoned me once. Why are you showing up now? Are you going to abandon me again? What did I do wrong?" When the vampire opened his eyes again, he saw the gang boss's face full of worry. The amnesiac vampire was starving and dizzy. He caught a sweet scent and followed. Turns out he interrupted the gang boss at the back. He opened the door, but then he was suddenly hugged. Cold breath brushed his neck. The vampire sniffed his neck greedily, chuckling soft. The gang boss flew into a rage and pinned him to the ground. "Who are you? Who sent you?" I was just so thirsty." The vampire explained teacher. The gang boss just threw him out. "Don't go crazy at someone else's door." The vampire lay on the ground looking pitiful. "I'm homeless." Gang boss ignored him and shut the door. "Who was that outside?" The man in bed couldn't help. "Just some runaway nutcase," he said the man on his way. But the man wouldn't let it go. "You'll call me again, right?" "I'll be waiting." The gang boss didn't. His mind suddenly flashed to the pretty boy from earlier. A smirk appeared at the corner of his mouth. The man took The vampire woke up in a coffin in the castle. But a man in uniform said it was private property, then kicked him. Locked outside, the vampire was confused. But this is supposed to be my home. But after sleeping too long, his memory was blank. To survive, he tried to blend into society. But human blood now was so low quality he could barely swallow it. He wouldn't starve. But going without blood made his throat burn with thirst. Then he caught that familiar scent again. So sweet he couldn't help swallowing. So sweet, Wang Tian. The gang boss woke a pretty boy sleeping at his door. He brought him back, let him shower, and even made him steak. But watching the pretty boy's refined table manners, the gang boss was surprised maybe he's some runaway rich kid. Too bad to just use as bait. Australian slumber red wine. The pretty boy suddenly spoke up and named the wine's origin. Delight flashed in the gang boss's eyes. An idea came to him. He stared at the pretty boy seriously and said, "Want to work for me? I need a wine taster. The pay's good. You can ask for other things too." The pretty boy looked surprised and pleased. Then Bo Shexing, he asked seriously, "Can I drink your blood? Can I drink your blood?" The gang boss was. He never expected the pretty boy to make such a bizarre request. Is he crazy? The gang boss pushed down his suspicion. He confirmed again, "That's really all you want." The pretty boy nodded firmly. The gang boss muttered to himself, does he have some weird fetish? But thinking of the potential benefits, he reluctantly agreed. Recently someone had been sabotaging him. They secretly tampered with his wine. But the chemical was still undetectable. He'd found out they bribed 5 regional bosses in charge of wine. One person's identity was already confirmed. If he could identify the tampered wine, he could trace it back and catch the culprit. Watching the pretty boy's back, the gang boss felt a bit guilty. Even if this worked out, he'd eventually die from slow poisoning. The vampire was taken straight to the gang boss's bedroom. He was told to live there from now on. The reason? Cutting costs. The vampire was confused but sweetly said okay. Then he was taken to his workplace. Soon he easily identified the difference between 2 wines. The gang boss was very sad. He decided to honor the promise. But when he saw the pretty boy eating so serious, he suddenly found it amusing. This guy was exactly his type. Even if something happened, there'd be no consequences. Might as well keep him around for fun. But soon the gang boss was furious. This guy actually dared to fight him. But facing the pretty boy's pitiful eyes, he couldn't help but soften up. In the end, he decided to forgive him. This guy was gonna die. No point arguing over something so small. What left him speechless? Who's that? The guy suddenly passed out. "Sorry, I poisoned the wine you drank." The gang boss finally grew a conscience and confessed everything to the pretty boy. "To expose the traitor in my organization, I had to use you." The vampire finally understood. His frequent nosebleeds were from the poison. But before he could process this, the gang boss continued. "I know you hate me, but leave here first. Go cool off. I've prepared a place for you outside. The air's good there. It'll help your recovery." The vampire panicked. He begged, "I won't leave. I won't die. Just let me stay by your side. Don't leave me." The gang boss looked at his pitiful expression, afraid he'd give in. He immediately turned away, told him to rest, then rushed off. The vampire hurried after him, but the door was locked. Were they going to be forced apart again like before? He ran to the balcony. He saw the gang boss getting his car and leave. He immediately turned into a bat and followed. When the vampire arrived, the gang boss's men were already in a shootout. He rushed over in a panic. Meanwhile, the surrounded traitor knew it was over for him. He thought if he was going down, he'd make the gang boss suffer too. So he yelled out, "Heard you've got a little sweetheart. Aren't you curious how he's doing?" The gang boss's heart sank. He immediately had his men check on the pretty boy. Turns out the pretty boy really wasn't in the room. He was seething with rage. He shouted at Borza, "What do you want? Have your men leave. Come in yourself." The gang boss knew it might be a trap, but thinking the pretty boy was kidnapped, he raised his hands and walked in. Borza didn't expect the gang boss to fall for it, so he was about to shoot, but suddenly got knocked aside. It was the pretty boy. The gang boss rushed over, but there was another gunman hiding. He immediately fired back. In the chaos, Borza raised his gun at the gang boss. The pretty boy reacted fast. He jumped in front of the gang boss. The pretty boy took 2 bullets and slowly fell. The gang boss watched blood pour from his mouth. He complained. He screamed, "No!" After Vampire Ire took bullets for the gang boss, he passed out. He fell into a nightmare again. Within days, plague broke out in the village below. Famine and sickness mixed together. Crazed villagers stormed the castle. The vampire was starving. He instinctively pounced on a thief and bit him. But villagers behind him swung an axe and wounded him. The villagers remembered the legend. The castle housed an immortal monster who survived on human blood. Greed seized the villagers. If they drank the monster's blood, maybe the plague would be cured. The villagers